Inheritance included in object oriented programming subject. Now, what is inheritance? Inheritance is a form of software reuse where a new class is created to absorb an existing class data and behaviors. Before starting about inheritance, we will just review of the classes. We have already done classes in object oriented programming language. What is a class? I have already told you in my last lecture that whenever we are having a bottom up approach in object oriented programming language, then we follow classes concept. Classes means we can create data, we can declare data, we can create functions, and we can declare the function definition in between a specified code, in between a specified area, that is called as a class. And outside of the class we can declare an object of that class, and with the help of that object we can access the member functions of the same class. We have already done about the member functions. I repeat again, member functions are those functions which are declared in a specified class. Now, inheritance is the next concept of the classes. Inheritance, as the name is applying, means something is inherited in the classes. Now, in classes in computers, what we can inherit is that is only the data that we can inherit. Now, I repeat my definition. Inheritance is a form of software reuse where a new class is created to absorb an existing class data and behavior. In the starting concept of your subject object oriented programming language, you must have learned the feature of reusability in object oriented programming language. Are you all aware of this reusability? What is that reusability? This concept is included in the term of inheritance. Means whenever we reuse the set of instructions, the code that we have declared once, and we are using it again and again in our own program with the help of object and with the help of this class, that concept is called as inheritance. That is a form of software reuse where a new class is created to absorb an existing class data. Means we will create a new class with the help of already created class, and we will inherit the properties of already declared class. When we inherit the properties of already declared class, then it can use or absorb an existing class data and behavior, and we can enhance them with new capabilities. Means we can add some new features in the new created class and also use the data that is declared in already existing class. Now, the new class that is called as a derived class, which inherits the members of the existing class known as the base class. I told you, whenever we create a new class by the help of using any already existing class, then the already existing class is called as a base class, and the new class that we inherited from the already existing class is called as a derived class. I repeat this definition. The new class is called as a derived class, that is inherits the members of the existing class known as the base class. Clear what is a derived class and what is the base class, and what is actually the concept of inheritance. Now, in C++, inheritance is the mechanism for building class types from other class types. Means inheritance is the mechanism for we can build class types from other class types that we have already declared. Now, look at this diagram. This is what actually is showing. We have some inherited properties. This class, suppose this is a class 1, class 2 and class 3, and this class 1 is called as a base class from which we derived a new class, this class. This is called as a which class? It is derived class. And again, this is a base class for this class, and this is called as a derived class. Means inheritance is a mechanism for building class types from other class types. Clear? We can build a class type from other class type, and the already existing class is called as a base class, and the new created class from that base class is called as a derived class. Now, advantages of inheritance. When a class inherits from another class, there are basically three benefits. One is we can reuse the methods and data of the existing class. Reuse means we can reuse the data, we can reuse the member functions, the methods that we have already declared in the existing class, we can reuse them in the new derived class with the help of inheritance. The second is, note down this concept, what is reusability and the reuse of data. The second concept is we can extend the existing class by adding new data and new method. I told you just now that if we use inheritance concept, if we have declared the base class and we are deriving a new class with the help of that existing class, then the derived class can reuse the data that is already present in existing class, and it can have its own features, it can have its own data that is declared in that class only. Means it can use the existing class data and its own data also. Means we can extend the features of the existing class. I repeat, we can extend the existing class by adding new data and new methods. The next is we can modify the existing class by overloading its methods. Are you all aware of the concept of overloading? I repeat, overloading means you can use the functions with the same name, having different arguments in the function parameters. Clear? You can call the same function name in your base class and the derived class with having different number of arguments in it. I repeat this concept, you can modify the existing class, means the data that is already present in existing class can be modified by overloading its methods, means its functions, with your own implementations. Now these were the main advantages of inheritance. Now again, what is reusability? This question comes in your examination also. What is reusability? Building new components by utilizing existing components. Note down this definition. What is it actually? Building new components by utilizing existing components means we can build new components with the help of already existing components. The components are what? This is data and the functions. That is yet another important aspect of object oriented paradigm. Now, it is always good and productive if we are able to reuse something. It is very obvious thing that reuse concept is always better than new use of data. So, if we are able to reuse something that is already exist rather than creating the same all over again, it is the obvious thing that it reduces the time. Very obviously it increases the flexibility in the program, it reduces the cost of the program of the software also. I repeat, reusability concept is if the reusability concept is present in your program, then it is always good or productive if we are able to reuse something that is already exists rather than creating the same all over again. Now, this is achieved by creating new classes. Now, reusability concept can be achieved in object-oriented programming paradigm by the help of inheritance only. Okay, this is achieved by creating new classes, that is reusing the properties of the existing classes. This inheritance concept increase the use of reusability in your program, means that already declared functions, already declared data can be used in the derived classes from that base classes. So this reusability concept is included in the object oriented programming language with the help of inheritance only. Now, inheritance is the subgrouping with respect to a parent are called subclass, derived class or they are called as a children. Means any derived class can be called as a subclass, derived class, or the children of the base class. And the derived class, what it does, inherits from the parent all characteristics, properties, and the capabilities. Like in your family, a child opt the properties or characteristics, we can say, of father or mother. Similarly, if we are describing, we are declaring any class as a derived class or children from the parent class, it will inherit the characteristics and the properties and the capability of all the existing classes, that is parent class, and can also modify or extend inherited abilities. Means that if a child having some properties of a parent class, and it can have its own properties too. Clear? Means a base class, derived class can have the characteristics, properties, and the capabilities of the base class, as well as it can modify or extend the inherited abilities of base class. Clear? Now, look at this diagram. If this is a parent and this is two children of this parent base class, then these two children of this base class can have the properties of this parent, and they can have the properties of their own. Means it can extend the feature of base class, and it can reuse and extend the feature of the base class. Similarly, the same as the child of this parent, and this is having two child. Clear? This is the tree like structure of inheritance, that from one class we can derive many classes. There is no end how much we can create the children of the parent class. And obviously the data and the member functions are shared by these all derived classes of this base class. Clear? Now, inheritance introduction again. This mechanism of driving a new class from existing class, old class, is called as inheritance. Look at this diagram. This is the parent, and we derived a child class from this parent class. Means it inherited the capabilities of the parent class and can have its own properties in the in derived class. The old class is known as the base class, superclass, or parent class. Note down this concept. What is the base class? It can also be called as a superclass or a parent class. And the new class is known as subclass, derived class, or a child class. Clear? Now it should be clear that what is actually inheritance is. Look at this diagram again. Suppose you are creating a program of your community member in your polytechnic college. Then what will you do? First of all, you will create a base class, that is community members. Who are the community members? That are the employee or faculty or staff, students, and so on. Now what will you do? From this base class you can drive many different classes according to your requirement on the database on your program. This concept is called as a single inheritance. Means you are driving a single class from the base class. Now again you are describing a single class from the parent class, and whenever you describe a single class from two base classes, then it is called as a multiple inheritance. Clear? You can derive many classes from the base class, and it share its own properties and characteristics and data and the methods, and also can use the data and the member function and the variables whatever you declare in your base class can be used in this derived class. And there is no limit of the class hierarchy, that how much it will be present in your program. And the types of inheritance can be used. We will discuss these types in this presentation later on. This means that you can, before starting your program in your programming language, object oriented programming language, you must draw a design for the same, that how you are going to implement that all. First of all, you design that whatever the variable and the function should be present in this class, whatever in this and this, you make a hierarchy for the same, and then you implement the logic in your programming language by using the syntaxes, that how a derived class can be derived from a base class. We will just discuss in this lecture. This is the main design diagram by which you can design your program logic concept in your notebook. Now, three types of inheritance in C++. We all are aware of these sections in C++ object oriented programming means class, that is public, private and protected. And whenever you drive any class from the existing class, then it can also use the concept of public, private, protected. Means whenever you drive a new class, it can be a public inheritance, it can be a private inheritance, or it can be a protected inheritance. Now what does this public, private and protected means, and where are the use of these public and private protected sections? Now public, whenever you drive a new class from the existing class in a public manner, in the type of public, then what actually happens? At that time, every object of a drive class is also an object of its base class. Clear? Whenever you use the concept of classes in your object oriented programming language, you need a object to access the methods and the functions of that class. But if you are using inheritance concept, then this is obvious thing, you are having two classes, one is a parent and one is a child class, and in the child class you declare it as a public inherited class. Then what will happen when you declared an object of derived class? That object can access the member function and data of base class also, and vice versa is not true. Note down this concept: whenever you drive a class as public from the base class, then you declare an object of the derived class. At that time, that object can access the methods of the base class, but vice versa is always not true. I repeat, every object of a derived class is also an object of its base class, but base class objects are not object of their derived classes. Clear? Now public has done. Now private. If you use a visibility of the data in inherited class as a private, then what will happen? It is essentially an alternative to the composition of, that is, derived class member not accessible from outside. Clear? Means derived class members cannot be accessible outside if they are using the private property of that of the base class. And protected is really used, I just discussed with you, access rights of derived classes. We have just done that topic. Types of inheritance can be private, protected or public. And the access control for members is what? Suppose that you declare a class as private. You derived a class as private from the base class. What will happen at that time? The base class protected or public data will be a private thing. Means you cannot access outside, you cannot access the data outside that class. I repeat, if you are using the private property of the base class in your derived class, then every section of your base class, it may be public, it may be protected, it may be private, will remain private, and private data is always private to all. And if you are using the protected property, means you are driving a class, you are inheriting the class as a property of protected mod, then again protected and public data will remain protected in the derived class. But if you are using the public section, means you are driving class with the public keyword, then protected data will remain protected and the public data will remain public in the derived class. Clear the differences between the private, protected and public mods from base class to the derived class. The type of inheritance defines, means a type of inheritance, that is private, protected or public, defines the access level, means how you can access the data that is already present in the existing class. The type of inheritance defines the access level for the members of derived class that are inherited from the base class. Clear what is actually inheritance, how we can drive the classes, what are the types of inheritance that we can use in your program, that is private, protected and public. What will happen when we declare any derived class as private, or when we declare any class as protected, or when we declare any class as public. Now, what actually the protected means? A base class protected members can be accessed by, if we declare any section, any derived class as a protected class from the base class, then what actually happens? I already told you in this diagram that if we declare as a protected, then protected data will remain protected and public will also be protected in that mod. Now, if the data is protected, at that time who can access the data? Then for accessing the data, we use friend functions. In that we have already done this friend functions. What are that? In our last lecture, members and friends of the base class can access the protected members, or member and friends of any class derived from the base class. Clear? Means if the data is protected in any class, then members and friends of that base class can access that data. Otherwise, any class that is derived from in a protected mod can access, its members or friends can access the data of the base class. And derived class members functions can refer to public and protected members of the base class by simply using their names. Clear? Means public can also be accessed. Now, protected and private inheritance, how you can declare it? The syntax to declare a class inheritance is what? That is, you can use class keyword, class X. Here is a class that is named as X, and you are declaring another class that is Y, means protected Y. Means this X is inherited from this base class Y. This syntax is showing that we have already declared a class that is named as a Y, and we are driving a new class from that Y class that is named as a X, and this double colon is used to inherit the properties of the already declared class. Here on that side we declare the base class, and this is the derived class. Class X, class keyword shows that we are creating a class, this colon, and the second class name is showing that we are inheriting any class from already existing class. And the vision here we have created as a protected. Here we can use the word public, private, or protected. You can protect the data, you can publicize the data, or you can privatize the data. Means class X is inherited. Look at this diagram. From this diagram it must be very clear that we are driving a class X from already existing class Y, but the vision mode of that class is protected. Means the protected data is only present in this class. With protected inheritance, public and protected members of Y, note down this concept. What happens if we use protected word here? At that time the public protected members of this Y become protected in X. Clear? All the members and the methods that we have defined in Y will be protected in X, or can only be accessed with the help of the member functions only, friend functions only. Public and protected members of Y become protected in X. That is, classes derived from X inherit the public member of Y as protected. Clear? What does this protected mean? With private inheritance, if we use here private word, class X colon private Y, at that time obviously thing, the public and the protected member of Y will become private in X. Clear? If we are using the protected word here, then the all data that is present in Y will be protected in X, and otherwise if we are using private word, then all the data that is present in this Y, that is public or private, will become private in this X. I repeat, public and protected member of Y become private in X. That is, classes derived from X inherit the public member of Y as private only. Clear? The default inheritance means whenever you don't specify anything, it is means that is private. Clear? Means what is protected and what is private. And if you use here public keyword, then all the data that is present here will be public to the X class. Means X class can access the data of Y class publicly. Now, important note, member functions of derived class cannot directly access private member of base class. Note down, the member functions of derived class cannot directly access private section of the base class. Now, example, suppose Manager member function is previous example that we have already done, cannot read manager's own name, means the private data cannot be accessed outside the class, or if any class is derived from that base class, because the reason is data member of class are by default private. Now class derivation. Suppose that we have declared a class that is named as a point, and we declare a new class named as 3D point. We derived a class from the existing class. Here we are using an example for the class derivation, that we have declared a class named as a point and we derived a new class from this base class named as 3D point. Then what is the syntax for the same? What we have to do is, first of all we have to clear a class with the keyword class point and the braces starts for the same, and then we have to declare the variables in that section by defining the sections in that, that can be protected, that can be public, that can be private. In protected section we declare two variables, integer x and y, and in public section we declared a member function. Now again the class close, we declared a class point. Here something can be there, it can be any data. Now from that class we have to derive a new class. What is the syntax for the same? I just told you that first of all you have to write the name of the new class, that is class 3D point. From this colon, then we have to specify the vision, the visibility of the base class. If we declare here public, then public, all the data that is present in class point will be public in that derived class, means the derived class member function can access the data that is defined in the base class. The syntax for this is same like as class 3D point colon public, again the class name that is already defined and the braces start. Then we can define its own section, that is private. It can have any variable in it, and then the member functions of that class. It means that here we can define anything in that, any member function or any function that is publicly present by having different arguments in it with the help of using function overloading. Now this syntax is showing what, that we have declared a class here from this derived class. Now look at this diagram. Here we have again a new class from this class. This is the concept of single inheritance, that first of all we declare a 3D point class, derived a new class from the already existing class, and again we derived a new class from that derived class. Now what is the syntax for the same? Write down in your notebooks. How can you specify this derived class from already derived class? What will be the syntax? Write down on your notebooks. You have to write class keyword, then the name of the class that is already, that is you are driving new class, that is class sphere colon, then section of that class, that is public, and the name of your base class, that is 3D point. And now the body of the class can be anything, you can declare any data in that, you can use any member function in that. Clear how we can use inheritance, what inheritance use, that is means the concept of reusability. Reusability means whatever is declared in the base class can be called, can be used in the derived classes. To declare the derived classes, the syntax is what? You have to specify class keyword, then the name of the class that you are driving, and then the property of the class, then the already existing class name. Clear how the inheritance concept can be implemented actually in object oriented programming language. This is what showing is point is the base class of 3D point, while 3D point is again the base class of sphere. Clear? Now how the access control, means the private protected and the public section of the base class can be accessed in the derived classes. Access control over the members. Any base class can also be called as a superclass or can also be called as a parent class, and any derived class can also be called as a subclass or a child class. Here we derived a class derived from, what actually goes from this base class to derived class is, that is members, means all the methods and the members can share from base class to derived class, but vice versa is not true. Any base class cannot access the data that is present in derived class. Now two levels of access control over members, over class members, that is class definition, and depends upon the basically on inheritance type, means it is private or public or protected. Class point, class circle, if it is public, then public, all the data that is present in point class will remain as public